Hi there, I'm Dr. Chung and welcome to your friendly proctologist. Thank you so much for viewing this video. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. There are so many other videos out there, so many places you need to be, but I appreciate you very much. I'm also opening up video consultations for everyone that's interested. So just look in the video description box and you'll see all the details in there. Meanwhile, while you're at it, please like and subscribe this video and to this channel. It really greatly helps the mission, which is to educate people all around the world. So let's get to today's topic, okay? And this is a topic that everyone needs to know about, and frankly, it's not talked about very well anywhere else. So here it is. The topic is anal sex bad for my bottom end? Is it gonna harm it? Is there irreversible damage? You know, all those questions that we want to know about, you know? So let's talk about it in a very specific manner because, you know, with anal sex there's a receptive, so receiving the intercourse, right? Using your bottom end. And then of course there's the penetration side, but what we want to know with our health of our bottom ends is, can you have anal sex safely with your own bottom end, right? And so let's break things down, okay? The bottom end is a very, very sensitive organ, right? It's in the anogenital region, or the erogenous zone as it's frequently called, right? And for good reason, because there's a lot of nerves, a high concentration of nerves, many of them there. And they're very specialized nerves and they're very, very sensitive, right? And just like the penis or the clitoris, right, they have very high concentration of nerves, so does your bottom end. And so it goes without saying that yes, some people get pleasure out of anal sex, right? And that may not be you, but in terms of whether sometimes you want to experiment, right? How do you know unless you've tried it, right? And with your partner, if that discussion comes up where the possibility of trying anal sex, or, you know, have you ever had anal sex? You know, those kind of questions may come up, and this is where the research comes in, right? So the nerves around the bottom end are very sensitive, which gives people that tingling in their pleasure center of their brain, which makes this a happy behavior that they're more than willing to engage in with their partner, right? And so I think that's really one of the most important things there, is that it's a sensation of pleasure, right? If it's not a sensation of pleasure, then most likely it's probably causing pain, swelling, inflammation, and those are very negative sensations for anal sex, right? And really any sex in general, if there's any pain with it, it's not going to be very pleasurable. And so we need to be nice to our bottom ends, because in all the videos I've made so far, it's very important to keep your bottom end in mind, be friends with your anus, and be on the lookout for your anus. Make sure you defend your bottom end, and so that the experience can be slow, especially if it's your first time, and make it as comfortable as possible so it becomes a more positive experience, right? And so when you're having intercourse with your bottom end, what's happening is you have, whether a penis or a sex toy, something is penetrating your bottom end. And what happens is that outside of whatever you're having sex with is going to be rubbing within the inside of your anus. And we've already talked about how the lining inside of our anus is very, very fragile, right? When it starts from the outside, it's very, very thin skin. It's starting to thin out, and as you go towards the inside, towards your rectum, towards your intestine, it's turning into intestinal lining, okay? And by the time you're in the rectum, that is straight up intestinal lining, 100% pure. The intestinal lining in your rectum, pretty much the intestinal lining inside, way on the right side of your colon, okay? Same stuff. And so you can imagine that when you're having sex, you want it to be ideally a gentle thing, because the lining can become very fragile, and then wounds if the sex is too, let's say, too passionate or too rough even. And that way you may have a lot more discomfort or pain after the act is over, right? So it's very important to use a lot of lubrication and re-lube frequently, okay? And it's going to be a much more positive experience for you, so that you don't have things like bleeding after bottom end, after anal sex. You know, you don't want stuff like that. Or you have a bowel movement the next morning and things are really raw and very uncomfortable. You know, with a very big sex toy or a very big penis, you can get fissures that occur, just like as if you pooped a very big and hard bowel movement. You can get cracks and rips in the inside lining of your anus. So these are all things to keep in mind, okay? So is it safe to have sex, anal sex? The answer is yes, when done properly, okay? And according to your needs, and to have a partner that's open and receptive can be extremely helpful to make your experience a positive one. So the things that I recommend when first attempting anal sex is, number one, to use plenty of lubrication, like I said, okay? And re-lube frequently. Number two, have a discussion with your partner about how the first time is gonna go. You know, sometimes you may not think it's very sexy, it's not very spontaneous, but trust me, when you guys actually get into the mood and that time comes up, you're going to feel a lot more relaxed. You're going to feel like you can trust your partner because you discussed it beforehand. And what you want to discuss is how it's going to go, you know, how gently, you know, is there like a safe word, right? Or a way that you can say, nope, we're done here, we got to stop. You know, is there a way that you can coach your partners like, okay, that's okay, you know, say like, no, definitely when I say no, or this means definitely it's out of the question. So that's another thing, right? And then when things get too passionate, a way so that your partner knows when you gotta slow down, you gotta come out, has gotta happen. That kind of commitment and discussion beforehand. What's another one? Another one is to make sure that your bottom end is a little bit prepared for it. Your anus doesn't like things going in there. And so what normally happens is that the muscles are going to clamp down. They're going to resist things going in there. And I told you before that the sphincter muscles for your control of your bottom end, there's an outside one and an inside one. The inside one is not under your conscious control. And so if you don't prepare that guy, he's going to be clamping down really hard, and it may cause pain if someone tries to force things on you or push really hard. So how to prepare then? What I would use is a series of what we call dilators, okay? And you can use your fingers. There's also sex toys that also can have stages in terms of the size. But I would use that in order to prepare yourself so that you can be know what to expect a little bit in terms of the sensation, but also to allow that anus to open up and so that you can feel more relaxed when it's time to have sex, okay? And I would say in the very first time, okay, not to have a very long session, okay? I would limit the time and make sure that it is a good experience, but also all the tissues in there are virgin, okay? And when you really rough things up for the first time, the defenses aren't there. So if you've had anal sex many times before, you kind of get used to it, right? And the lining inside your bottom end gets a little bit tougher. Okay, there's some adaptations that it makes in order to withstand some abuse. And so if you're just going into it for the first time and you have anal sex for 30 minutes, you're probably gonna feel like you're gonna regret that one, right? So maybe you do it for 2 minutes, and then it's slow and it's easy and you take your time. Then the next time maybe you go for a little bit longer and you just kind of stepwise kind of increase things as you go, as you feel comfortable, and as your partner works with you so that things can be a positive experience. And so I wanted to conclude and say again that yes, anal sex is safe. You should always use protection. Of course, that goes without saying because the anal lining is very fragile and bleeding and other wounds can be in there. And so sexually transmitted diseases through the bottom end is a real thing. That goes without saying. But can you have an enjoyable sexual experience with your bottom end? The answer is yes, and many do. And so I hope that this video was helpful for you. Please go ahead and comment and leave your questions. I'm happy to answer them for you as we grow our knowledge together. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.